Welcome to Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to business continuity, disasters, emergency management, resilience, polycrises, anything that can help you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am the only Alex Fullick there. I'm really easy to find, and I do respond to everything I get. Longtime listeners and longtime viewers, you will know it's that time again. I want to welcome to the show Regina Phelps. Regina, welcome back.
Alex, Happy New Year. How are you,
Yes,
my friend? It's been a long time. We've had a kind of a series of near misses or misses over the last couple of months because we've been both too darn busy.
yeah, and lots has been going on, but we
Yeah.
finally made it. This is our first show of the new year,
Yes,
even though
indeed.
even though we're over 3 weeks into it.
Yeah, I know. I was making an appointment for next week and it was like, oh my God, it's the 30th already. How could that be?
Time flies.
Time flies, yes, when you're having disasters and crises and things like
hmm
that.
And we've got lots to touch on today, so why don't we jump straight into it?
That's great. And I appreciate that because our goal, as we talked about in the pre-con today, is that we want to actually see if we can actually go through this entire thing today. Because, we get talking, and next thing you know, we could talk for months on the same topic.
And we have. It took
And
us
we
three
have,
months to
yes.
finish one deck once.
Yes, I remember that. So, for listeners who have heard us before, and maybe if people have heard me speak or write before, we're going to start with the concept of polycrisis. And this is really being fueled by a couple things, not only the state of the world, oh my gosh, but also it's the time of the World Economic Forum. And that's the time that the Global Risk Report is issued every year. And I've been a follower of that since it first came out in the early 2000s. And it's been so interesting to see how it has gotten kind of more challenging, more difficult, kind of grimmer in some ways. And we're going to peel that back a little bit. And then we're going to really talk in particular about why 2024 is such a big deal. So, are you ready, my friend?
I am ready.
Woohoo! Put on your seatbelts. Here we go. So, today we will talk about just revisiting polycrisis. If you remember, we talked, I don't know, was it 2 or 3 months in a row about polycrisis in 2023?
Yeah, I believe we started February and we ended April, I think.
Something like that, right? And it's turned out to be even more of an important word, if you will, because if you look at the status of the globe, we are in a massive polycrisis in so many regions of the world. I am going to quickly talk about the World Economic Global Risk Report. And for all of our listeners, I would say to you, this is a really important document. You can download it for free. It's about 120 pages, but I will tell you it's important for you to digest it and also share that with executives because it does have some long range issues to consider, but also is looking at the short term as well. I'm going to talk about the big news of 2024, and that is that the world is voting this year, and I'll talk more about that. And then I want to talk a little bit about what that means as far as crossing your fingers about democracy in this current state. So here we are with our favorite word, you and I. Polycrisis, I think, is the best word because what it really does is describe this situation that we are living in today, which is really, as the word kind of implies, it's really an interconnectedness. It's an intertwining. It's everything sort of being tangled together where one problem actually ends up worsening another. And we're seeing that right now in some place that many people probably didn't even know where it was, which is the Red Sea, the Suez Canal, Yemen, and also the Houthis that are actually doing all of this disruption of commercial traffic through the Red Sea. Turns out between 15 and 20% of all the global traffic in the world goes through the Red Sea, and it begins to impact supply chains almost immediately. So that's a great example of a simple problem that turns into a large global problem that you start to worry about what's happening in the Red Sea, even though you may have never thought about it in your entire life. And that's a great example of a polycrisis. So it's these clusters of risks that all begin to bombard and really rub against each other, creating a much bigger risk. And that's what we're facing in many places of the world today. And so what I would encourage all of you to do is to actually go to Google alerts, and then actually drop in the word Polycrisis. And every day, Mama Google is going to send you all the articles about Polycrisis. And it's a great way for you to kind of get plugged into that. And then also share that with your executives as well as the people that you work with. And it really not only will educate you, but really shows that you are ahead of the game and paying attention to all of these things that have a huge impact.
And that's what part of the value that we give as business continuity, resilience, disaster planning
Amen.
people. That's a part of it.
Absolutely. Because a lot of people do not necessarily think about these things. Now, that's starting to change, I have to say. But still, I don't know how long that's going to last, that executives are all, oh my gosh, I'm so jazzed about resilience. But right now, it's a very popular word. But, I after 40 years of practice, I've seen those words sort of come and go and the interests come and go as well. So I think it's our job to continue to educate our executives, the people that we work with, provide value every day. And one of the ways is to show how this polycrisis issue is impacting every single organization around the world. So this gets to the Global Risk Network. So the World Economic Forum actually created this concept of the Global Risk Network. I think it was actually in 2024. And what it is essentially is it's a survey that's done in the late fall, early winter. It's issued usually at the beginning part of January, usually around January 10th or so. And what they do is they look at 5 areas and they look at it over a 10-year period of time. They give some short-term assessments in the 2-year slot, and then they look at the actual 10-year period, and they begin to give you an idea about what it looks like in the future. So they're playing a little bit of crystal ball. And they look at 5 areas always. And it's nice because you can go back and you can look at what they thought about 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and you can kind of see how it's evolved and changed over time. So they always look at economics. They always look at geopolitical issues. They look at the environment. They look at the overall impact to society. And then they look at technology. Now, the 2023 report was, I will say, one of the most pessimistic report I'd ever seen them issue since 2004. But that was before 2024 came out, because 2024 continued the exact same sentiment. So they are increasingly, I would use the word anxious. That's not probably the word they would use, but increasingly anxious about the conditions of the world in the short term and in the long term. And we're going to peel back these things, and then we're just going to talk back and forth. So I wanted to show you what they do in this particular report, which they have it divided in some really easy to grapple with concepts. And the first one is the short and long-term global outlook. And if you stop and look at this for a moment, what you'll see is they're essentially looking at 5 areas. They're saying things are really stormy, which means there could be pretty catastrophic events coming fairly soon. Things are pretty turbulent in their mind, which is kind of big upheavals and changes and what's going on in the globe. Things that are unsettled, things that are stable. You'll see on the little chart here, there's not many of those, and things that are calm. There's a lot less of those. So if you look from left to right, the top is the 2-year forecast, and the bottom is the 10-year forecast. And you can see straight away that, generally speaking, to me, I look at the first 3 colors, the stormy, turbulent, unsettled, as the things that immediately draw my attention. Certainly the ones that are stormy and turbulent for sure, but really even the unsettled, because it doesn't take long for an unsettled issue to become a major issue. And you could look at the war in Israel right now and look at it in that light, because it had been unsettled for very long in Gaza, and over the span of 24 hours, it turned into a significant war in the Middle East. So as you can see, as you look from left to right, short term, there are a lot. 3% of the people are really concerned about global catastrophic events. And I contrast that to the more scary part in my mind, which is in the long term, 17% of the people are saying that things are very risky and a global crisis, a global catastrophe is high. And then
what's amazing,
right?
What's amazing there is that they don't see any improvement. Yeah, they don't see improvement from for 8 years. They see things
Right,
getting worse.
right. I mean, that's the part that I find, and this one is humbling. It's not only that it's not so great now, we all know it's pretty bad, but that it's going to get a lot worse. And if you look at the very rust color at 17% in the long term, and you couple that with the 48% next to it, you're thinking to yourself, like, holy crap.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pessimism for a lot of different reasons, and we'll talk about those. And so this to me was a little unsettling, but I wanted to show you and sort of compare this. And so your listeners can either screenshot this or, and I'll give a summary in just a moment, but I wanted to compare 2024, a lot of pessimism, a lot of anxiety, a lot of angst for the long term. And then contrast to how we felt last year. Last year, I thought we were the worst shape we'd ever been. And technically we were, as far as the study had gone. But you can see that it was 13% being really pessimistic, but only 20% in 10 years. And go back and look at that. Now it's 17%.
Mm.
And so we were kind of more optimistic with 69%, but then 34% in 10 years. And look at it again, going back, it's 46% in 10 years. So we are continuing to slide in our optimism about what's going to happen. And that is, frankly, discouraging to me. So let me ask you this from your perspective and your clients and people that you talk to, does this sort of resonate with what you personally might feel or people around you might be feeling, that people are kind of pessimistic in a longer term way?
I think the easy answer is yes. I know some people who are always bubbly. They don't see everything as bunnies and rainbows anymore. People I talk to, neighbors, even when I'm walking the dogs, all these topics come forward, things that we never used to talk about before, and nobody has anything good to say, and one person, even today, when I was in the dog park, said that, things are going to get worse before it ever gets better.
Right.
So I think it's true. There is a really large percentage of pessimism floating around, and those that were always optimistic, the bubbly person in the room that no matter what was always smiling and laughing, even they're now starting to change their opinions and feelings.
Right, right. It is quite remarkable. I'm a super optimistic person, and I have to sometimes, the only way I can remain in an optimistic state, and we were talking about this earlier, is just do a news fast. I follow the headlines. I follow enough from my brain and my client information and the work that I do. But sometimes I cannot dig into those things to save my life because I just want to crawl into a deep hole. And
Yeah.
so, do you ever feel that way?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I used to have the news playing throughout the day as I'm working, sitting in the office, because I can see and hear the TV the way my desk faces in the office. But now I'll have a quick update in the morning and turn it off. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Yeah.
Because by the end of the day, I feel drained.
Yeah. That's a great thing to say. That's a great example of that. I feel drained because it feels like it sucks the air and the blood out of you, at least to me.
Yeah.
And then I'm just really tired. It's like, so this is really reflected in all of these global leaders, global risk managers, corporate executives that actually respond to this annual survey are feeling just like we are.
Yeah.
So in that summary, here's where you see that in 2023, you'll see that it was 96% pessimistic in the short term and only 90% in the long term, 84% for 2024 in the short term, 92% in the long term. But the thing that I found that was most concerning is there's no optimism. If you look at the bottom, in 2023, optimism was essentially 2% for short term and 9% for long term. In 2024, it's only 1% in 2 years and 1% in 10 years optimistic of changing. That, my friend, is a bit humbling.
Yeah, and I bet you that number's been rounded up.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. That wouldn't surprise me, not at all. So I think this is a really good way of sort of looking at where we are. I'm going to talk through a few more slides, and I know that actually, do you want to stop now?
Let's take a break now. and
Sounds
then
good.
we'll start on the next slides afterwards.
Great. Sounds good.
We're talking about Regina Phelps today, and we're talking about polycrises and lots more other things that are coming. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.